We have to create the right vibe, the energy, and everybody at the organization has to feel so privileged to be here. It's no other way.
Thanks for listening to the Purely Arsenal podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at Purely Arsenal FP for all the latest Arsenal podcasts.
Welcome to another episode of a Purely Arsenal sit-down podcast with my regular Neil Shah. How are you?
I'm all right, Jack. Not bad. How you doing?
Yeah, very good after that result. Obviously, we ended the international break with a fantastic, well, I'm probably going to talk about that Man United game every day for about a week, to be honest. I was quite happy in a way the international break was there because it gave me time to really soak up all the. So it was just a fantastic game to be a part of, no matter how far away you were. I just felt it was awesome. So, but we come back. We knew we hadn't won at Everton in 6 years. I think this was our 6th year going 8 years before this. So to get the win there, 1-0 win, we're going to discuss away at Everton. Tross and Jover do Dyche over. That's what we're talking about here. And we're going to talk. It wasn't a classic at all, but there's some big talking points still because I feel like a lot of little things happen in the game. But in the end, just a fantastic to get 3 points again in what is a really big week for Arsenal. So there's a lot to come in this week. Champions League starts, and then obviously the North London derby, which we'll all get into in due course. But first topic, Neil, lineup change of goalkeeper. What were your thoughts when you saw that? And what are your thoughts? We can touch a bit more on Raya's performance in a little bit. What were your thoughts on when you saw that? Because I almost missed the Ramsdale bit because I didn't even look at the goalkeeper. And what were your thoughts on Arteta's comments afterwards? He kind of said stuff that was like about, the ability to be able to rotate. He even mentioned that he would have loved to be able to sub a goalkeeper last year, but he didn't feel he had the courage to do it. I wonder what you thought about those comments as well as, what it means.
I actually wasn't surprised. I think it was on Michael's pod. I kind of posed a question at the end of it, and I said, how would you feel if you switched to Raya this weekend? And then he went back to Ramsdale on Wednesday for PSV because obviously he's played the internationals, and they were like, oh, didn't think of that, and it's possible. So we kind of touched on it, so I wasn't surprised at all. I know that you were saying at the beginning, ever since we signed him, right from the moment we signed him, you thought you could see him starting potentially in September, and obviously that's exactly what's come through. And so I wasn't surprised. I thought it was a good opportunity for Arteta to do that, considering, and he would say that he could potentially say to the press, he didn't say it as it happens, but he could have said that. Ramsdale's come off international duty. I thought it was a good chance to try Raya out, and it just wasn't a surprise to me. It really wasn't. Just touching on the others, I wasn't surprised to see Vieira start. I thought it was a good chance for him to finally sub Havertz and maybe play him that way instead, because I thought there was too much pressure on him. He was too much in the limelight and all this negativity about him. I thought that's going to do more harm than good to the player. And I wasn't surprised to see Eddie continue to maintain his place, but with Jesus coming on as a sub. So for me, everything was. I actually thought that's a really good lineup. I thought it's one of his strongest lineups that you can have. You've got all the defenders where you want them. None of this inverted stuff. Obviously, there was Partey is injured or something, isn't he, at the moment?
Few more weeks.
So there you go. So it's like, already, you were saying offline, look how many injuries already, and we're already into our 5th game, and it's the difference is we've now got the ability to replace and add, because we've got that depth without losing too much quality, I feel. So as far as the lineups concerned, it wasn't a surprise. As for Arteta's comments, I think it's a strange one to say that it would be nice to sub the goalkeeper. It's not a thing that hardly anyone does these days or has ever done. But I think he's probably just saying that as artillery for him to back up his decision. I think that as you said again, just repeating myself, it was always a matter of when, not if, Raya was going to start. is too good a goalkeeper not to start. We all know that he's signed permanently. It's not loan is just an interim thing. You wouldn't do all of that press stuff and all that media hype that we had with him if it was just a loanee. It wouldn't make any sense. So I think it was just a matter of time. And I thought this was a great opportunity because Ramsdale's just come off international duty. So it was all perfect. So I think that's just him saying it to say something without making him sound, I don't know. To be honest, I just found that really weird. So I really wanted to sub goalkeeper. But, as it happens, I think, most great teams have never had two quality goalkeepers. I don't see why we can't break the norm in that as long as we keep both happy. There's plenty of games at the moment to be able to do that. It would just be interesting to see what he does with PSV now. That would be quite telling. But that's how I saw it anyway, Jack. I wasn't surprised, and I thought it was a great lineup, to be fair.
Yeah, I really like the lineup. And yeah, like you, I thought Raya was coming in for a while. I felt he had enough. I felt there was a long-term reason behind it. Time will tell whether this can be a long-term thing. I find it difficult to believe it can be more than a one-year thing. But I think someone mentioned to me earlier that Brighton are rotating their goalkeepers at the moment this season. They don't know who's going to start each game, so it's not necessarily not being done elsewhere, though it is pretty rare, like you said, to see it, or certainly to see it in the long term. I just wonder what you think about. I agree with you on the Wednesday. I mean, if Ramsdale doesn't start on Wednesday, I think the writing's on the wall there because basically I find it difficult after this performance. Although we didn't have a lot to do, I felt he was so assured. I felt he was so calm at the back. I think it was our best defensive display this season, personally. We can say you have to take into account Everton are a poor side, but us at Everton, at Goodison Park, against the gravel drinker, like all of that put into play, I think you have to give him, as well as everyone else, the back four and everyone else, some credit there for handling the set pieces well, being really good with the ball and with their feet. I thought he was very comfortable there. I thought he was very good at set pieces, although there wasn't too many, but when it did come in, it looked like I was trying to watch it and think, what would Ramsdale do? But I did watch it thinking, I think he's claiming a lot more. I think he's coming for a lot more. And I wonder in games like that, I don't necessarily have the data to back it up, but I just wonder in games like that, that's so calm, whether Ramsdale gets involved a little bit more, maybe. Like, to the point where you start to feel a little bit unrest and unease because it was so comfortable at the back, wasn't it? And, I think there's a chance, like it gives Ramsdale the Champions League group stage, because he got us there, didn't he? So I think maybe that, but I struggle to see how we won't start next weekend at this point. But could be wrong. It's London derby. Ramsdale's obviously played in plenty of them. But it seemed like David Raya knew his whole family were in the stands. Obviously, I don't know when he announces the team. I don't think he announces it too early, but it seems like something they were very aware because his whole family were in the stands and stuff like that, which was nice to see. And I thought it was just you remember people used to say your back four will tell you if they trust your goalkeeper, and I thought they told us they really trusted him because when he claimed everything, they got out of the way. They're constantly playing the ball to him comfortably. Not that they don't with Ramsdale. I'm just judging Raya's first performance. I don't think there's a ton to go on, but it was the least chances we've conceded all season. We haven't conceded a lot anyway, but it was definitely the least we'd given away. So that was really interesting. I thought, I like you. I saw it coming. Maybe it was tactical. Maybe he saw that Everton do like to pump the ball long, and they know Raya's better from crosses. A lot of the data points to that, even though he's slightly short. Maybe. So let's see. Let's see what time will tell. But great dilemma to have in it. Really, really good dilemma to have. What were your thoughts on, just before we get into the game, obviously the other one was Vieira. What were your thoughts? Because some mixed reviews. I liked him in this game. I felt he's a little bit wasteful in front of goal, but I felt in terms of his ability on the ball and how involved he was, we felt like games have passed Havertz by recently. And I also thought it was really interesting to see him attack their physicality in a different way, almost with just having excessive technical ability in the midfield, rather than going toe-to-toe with them and going, we're going to bully you and out, go with a physical battle. That's why I thought Jorginho was going to start in this game, but he didn't do that. He started Vieira. But what were your thoughts on Vieira?
Yeah, good. I exactly as you said it. I think the only negative was his finishing. Other than that, everything else was fine. Hopefully, this finishing will come. Do you remember when we used to say that about Odegaard, that he can be quite wasteful in front of goal, which is a shame because he's a really good shot on him. He used to show it in fleeting. Well, it was fleeting, wasn't it? He would see it once in a while. We thought, why can't he do that more often? And I think that will come with Vieira. I really do believe that. I mean, we know that he's scored a couple of goals here and there, and they've been good ones. And I just think it's just a matter of time. I felt with him in the team, and excluding Havertz, I just felt the team looked a lot more fluid, especially when it came to anything attack-minded. And I felt that the team, like you were just talking about how comfortable the defence were with Raya there, which I completely agree. I felt that going forward we looked a lot more comfortable. We just looked a little bit more like our old selves last season when we were doing really well. It just looks a lot more balanced and together. It's difficult to do that against Everton because we know how they set up. We know they're very physical. You know, although they probably weren't as much as I was expecting as they were last time we were at Goodison earlier this year, I think it was. But we know that they can do that, and I just felt that Vieira slotted in nicely, and everything that transpired from him was a positive. So I didn't really look at Twitter as much as I normally do after this game, so I'm not quite sure what it was, but you just said there that, you know, it was a bit of a mixed bag, and, you know, about him and his performance. But the only negative I saw was his finishing, and that's not a bad thing. End of the day, we've got to remember this is his first start, isn't it, for a while?
Yeah.
I can't remember if he's had a first start in the Prem before. Has he? Last season?
Yeah. He started against Southampton at home with the 3-3.
Oh, okay. Right, well,
Brentford away. He had 3 starts last season. He had 3 total starts.
So it's not a lot to go on, is it? And it's not a lot for him to become acclimatised to. So I don't think he had a bad game. And I think the only interesting thing I would say about it is, obviously we lost Martinelli early, and I wonder if it would have been different with Martinelli. Now, look, don't get me wrong, I was the positive for me with Martinelli's injury is seeing Trossard, because I've been crying for him to play for a long, long time. So I'm glad that Trossard was on there. But I'm just wondering if Martinelli hadn't got injured, I would have been interested to see how Fabio would have fitted in that role for the game. So that may have changed Arteta's plans unexpectedly. But having said that, I thought he done all right. I was quite pleased with him. And physically, he just looks better, doesn't he, than he has done. He doesn't look a lot bigger, but there's something about him that more prepared. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for the challenge. He had 4 shots, most shots in the game, but like you said, a little bit wayward there, a little bit wayward with his final ball. But the fact that he's getting so involved in those positions. I mean, he only had 43 touches, which is a lot less than a lot of our players, but I felt in the key moments, he was actually, especially the key attacking moments, he was quite involved, even to the point where the goal came along and he played his part in that, so we'll get to that. But the next talking point is the non-goal, if you like. Obviously, first of all, what we should say is it's an absolutely fantastic ball from Vieira, and like you just mentioned, him and Martinelli link up, and an absolutely brilliant. I didn't even realise until I rewatched it how good, because I didn't celebrate because I thought it looked off. It was one of those ones where I'm like, something's off here. Was Eddie coming back from? So I just sort of sat there, but I never rewatched. I was just sitting there waiting for updates on the phone or whatever. But I never rewatched that. But the finish was sublime. I thought it was fantastic. Obviously, the frustration is it looks like in the process Martinelli has pulled his hamstring, or maybe it was just after. It looked like he didn't look quite right after scoring that goal. He was very muted in his celebration and stuff like that. But what was your thoughts? Sure, talk about the finish because it is brilliant, but obviously, unfortunately, it didn't stand. I think the decision's farcical, but what were your thoughts on it? Because the rule is that the real concern comes down to, is it deliberate or not, right? Because the deflection is, if it's deflected without being deliberate, then it would still be offside in theory, because that's the rule. I think it's a stupid rule personally, but I don't really see how that cannot be deliberate, Neil. Like, he's clearly tried to block the ball, hasn't he?
I didn't even know about this rule. I'll be completely honest with you. I had no idea. I was listening or watching your WhatsApp messages come through as I was watching the game, and I was a bit behind as well. So I was really confused. I thought, what the hell is wrong with that goal? Firstly, just quickly, I mean, the finish is unbelievable. so well taken. And it's a shame because he needed a goal, I felt, Martinelli, and more goal to score. And also, I don't know how that's going to affect him. I don't know how bad this injury is going to be. It could have changed his contribution to the team going forward immensely. If that had gone in, if that had been allowed, plus he didn't suffer an injury, it would have been really interesting to see his development over the next few games, because I've really thought, he's been great. He's been tremendous. He's been one of our better players, I'd say, with his energy levels, etc. But I think he needed a goal, and it's just a shame. So that, at the time, I was kind of more focused on him and how that's going to affect him now. And then you see him go off and like, oh, God, what's going on with us? How's our luck? What is this? Once again. And then we get into the nitty-gritty of the goal itself, and you think, but deliberate or not, it's come off an Everton player. So how does that work? It just doesn't make any sense. And I just couldn't understand it. Yeah, whether he's got a trailing leg. I mean, they were talking about the angle as well. Now, Man United were this when we got that goal, didn't we, given? And I thought, are they just trying to balance it out here a little bit? But then you think about the angles, and then even the commentators were saying that they haven't got adequate cameras in the stadium. How can they not have adequate cameras in the stadium? It's a Premiership game. Goodison Park might be an old stadium, but it's a established historical club. I mean, come on, what's going on here? So that started really getting it was becoming more and more frustrating for me. But at the end of the day, whatever the rule is, it's come off an Everton player, Jack. And the way I've always understood offside, if it's come off an opposition player, it doesn't matter what the circumstances. Why are they talking deliberate or non-deliberate? And you're right. How can it ever be not deliberate? Because that's what a defender, that's what anyone is doing in that position. They're trying to stop the ball, right? So if it comes off them, it comes off them. It's as simple as that. So if they go by the rule book and that's the rule, which I didn't know about, fair enough, but it's a bit of a stupid rule. You're right.
It's not really. That's the problem. The rule is a subjective rule when you read it. So it basically says, if the ball is not played deliberately, then it's offside from the player that passed it. But the problem with this rule, or the way they've interpreted this rule, and I can't believe they didn't deliberate over it more, because they called the offside very quickly. For me, I'm not even sure they even looked into the details of it, whether it even came off an Everton player or what. I think they just looked at the lines and when the ball was kicked from Gabriel and called it. And I'm not arguing, disputing if that's the line, because obviously last week with Garnacho, in theory those lines should be relatively accurate. The camera angle's dreadful. I agree with you on that one. So, but which makes it look a bit dodgy. But the point I get the point of it being deliberate. Like, let's say, for example, Gabriel passed the ball and Doucouré was slide tackling and it came off his shin and flicked into, Eddie's path. Then I would understand that. But Gabriel was playing the ball out of right back. Beto sees that. Is it Beto or Doucouré? I can't remember. But they see that. The Everton player sees that. Clearly attempts to block it. So what are they saying? He deliberately didn't pass to Eddie Nketiah. I mean, no player from the opposition is deliberately passing to your own opposition. So it's a ridiculous rule. And the way they've interpreted it is ridiculous as well, I think. And it's frustrating because, like you said, Martinelli could have really done with that goal. He's been lively all season but hasn't got a goal yet. And we've lost a player to that and a goal to that. And the frustrating thing for all of it is that lifts... They were so quiet, their crowd, but that gives them a huge boost, which was undeserved, I think. Like, the goal should have stood. Arteta said at the end of the game the goal should have stood. Funnily enough, Sean Dyche didn't have any recall of it. So like it was tremendously frustrating in that moment. And I remember us talking at halftime, me, you, Mike, and James on the WhatsApp group, and just saying, I can see this now. Just us talking about this moment for post game and going, if this should have been given and stuff like that. And I was so sort of frustrated at the time, thinking we can't allow that to sort of sway our way of playing. And it wasn't a classic, like I said, but they were so defensive. I mean, they were so abject. They're such a poor side, and they had no intention of coming out to play whatsoever. Really, they had no. I don't really recall any shot other than one in the first half from distance that went right straight down Raya's throat. Other than that, beyond that, I think all they had was Decore dive, and I'll call it a dive, which was in the first half, I think, as well, where he kind of dived over Saliba's leg. And Dyche is saying that it's a penalty post-game, and I'm like, that's a booking. I was upset with that because he didn't get booked. I didn't even consider it being a penalty. I could tell he dived from a mile away, but that was a booking, and that's where the frustration. So him saying it's a penalty is just typical anti-football corruption kind of thing. But yeah, really frustrating at that point because we weren't creating a lot, were we, Neil? Do you worry at all in these games? Where teams clearly respect us 10 times more than they did last season. And Arteta knows that, I think. Do you worry at all in these games that they're just so negative, the opposition team, that we need to find ways of being a little bit more creative? Because we did create enough to win the game. Clearly, we won the game, and we probably should have won it by more, considering the goal that was disallowed and all that kind of stuff. Do you feel at all that we need to be trying to create more? It can get a little frustrating, especially early on in the game, where you're probing for so long. You feel like sometimes you're not really getting that final chance. Or do you think it's just about being patient and mature like we were today, really?
I think it's a bit of both, depending on who we're playing. If we're playing teams that are going to be, blocking and having this game plan like Dyche has had, and there are going to be a lot of teams that are going to do that against us because they know how devastating we can be going forward. I think patience is the key. I think a lot of the players have said that as well in post-interviews and whatnot, and saying that, at the end of the day, we play to the final whistle and, we never give up. And that to me all just spells patience. It can come late. These winners or these goals can come late. So I'm not too worried about that. I think the only concern is we're not creating as much as we were last season. We were unbelievable. Aside from the Man U game, which we should have won anyway, or it should have been 3-1 because of certain things. I just felt that we were unbelievable. We were mesmeric last season. I think, number one, because we've not seen anything like that for a while, so it was like hit us even harder, and it was just not so unexpected. But I just felt that our play was so much faster and more well put together and more fluid. And I think the reason why it's not so much this season is because of Kai Havertz. And I know it sounds like he wasn't poor lad, who didn't even start, and I don't want to have go at digs at him because it's just no good us doing that. But I just felt because of his inclusion and not knowing how to quite play him and where to play him, I think that's disrupted us a bit. And to be honest, this is our first start without him, isn't it? So it's difficult for the players just to adjust straight away and then be the way we were last season. And then plus we're playing Everton, which is going to be completely anti-football. I mean, they were terrible, Jack. I mean, look, I'm not taking anything away from us because I thought we played a really good game at the end of the day. It was a very professional game. I thought defensively we were great. Raya was great at the back, comfortable, etc. But at the end of the day, it was hard to create anything against them because of the way they set up. So in a way, the way that we got the goal in the end and it was patiently driven was quite. We should take our hats off to them really and pat them on the back. I think we will get games where the opposition are more open and we will be able to play our style. So I think it's early days to kind of be critical. I'm just thinking we haven't played as well as we can, and we're 13 out of 15. So I think it's great. I think if we can slowly progress and be amongst them or be amongst City more, which is probably going to be the our biggest challenge. Potentially Liverpool, I don't know. They're a bit of an unknown at the moment, aren't they? But I think if we just stay with them, I think we're doing really well. So I don't think we should worry too much because I think we just peaked too early last season. And I'd rather build up slowly, and I'd rather be the underdog, to be honest. So the pressure's a little bit off us. So I'm not worried about it, no, not at the moment. I don't know about you, but I'm not.
Well, no, I think it's it's less eye-catching the way we're playing at this point, but it's definitely more effective, certainly defensively, I think. I watch it and I think it's more repeatable. We're playing players that make less errors. Because, put this, I love Thomas Partey. I really think he's a terrific player. And I thought he was one of our best players this season until he got injured again, as usual. But he makes errors. In every game I watch him, he makes 2 or 3. I mean, Community Shield, he made the error for City's goal, and there was 1 or 2 more we got away with in the first few games of the season. And I'm watching him thinking he's fantastic. He made 2 big errors here that could have cost us goals. And the one thing I would say with Rice, who was fantastic again, I think maybe he doesn't necessarily always play the harder pass. Like Partey always seems to try to get the ball forward early, really press resistant. But Rice is much more solid. You're far more assured that Rice isn't going to make that silly error. Yeah, he did have one issue today where he gave the ball away sloppily, but it's more rare. It's much more rare with Rice from what I'm seeing. And I think, we don't really know the extent of where Rice can go, whereas Partey, we kind of have seen everything with him. So it's amazing to watch games, Neil, where we'd be worried for the last, 2 years about Thomas Partey going down and how are we going to play without Thomas Partey. To the point where we're like, we're watching us without Thomas Partey and we're still really, really effective. In fact, we're watching it probably going, even if he's fit, I'm not sure if he starts at this point, possibly. And that's quite incredible, isn't it? I mean, maybe he would, but if he would, it would be probably in that inverted role because I'm not seeing him necessarily just chuck Rice back into sort of the 8 role, maybe. Maybe he will, but it's a great option to have. But at the same time, it's just great to see that's how much the squad has developed to be able to see that. I mean, we've lost Timber, Partey, Zinchenko, Jesus, Martinelli already this season. No one's talked about it. Mikel Arteta never talks about, injuries and making excuses for that. But you see all the other managers discussing it this season, Man U, Chelsea's, etc. Far more spent, all that kind of stuff. So I think, it's credit to us, really. And like you said, we've had a lot more setbacks early on this season. Last season, we started really well, really fast. Well, I say that, but we're actually got more points this season than we had last season, so that's quite good. But in terms of being easy on the eye, we were much more free-flowing, much more goals. But we also basically had a fit 11 for a very long time. We didn't have really any injuries early on. It all happened later, didn't it? Whereas this season, slight concern is we do seem to be losing sort of one per game for, a few weeks here and there and stuff like that. And it's a little bit frustrating, but we're coping with it really well. Like you said, it's definitely a more mature way of playing. It's not. I mean, I feel like that game yesterday, you kind of seen Man City play that game multiple times, where you're just like they're just suffocating the other team, and this game's going to be over pretty soon, kind of thing. And watching it from my perspective, I'm always nervous. But if you're watching it as a neutral, I can't imagine you had much hope once we scored of Everton coming back into it, which is quite encouraging, I think. So the goal, we've got to talk about the goal. Obviously, your man Trossard. I feel like the move for the goal is almost being underplayed because it's such a sublime finish, which is fair enough. But what were your thoughts on the goal? What was your thoughts on the uproar about the corner? I do think it's it's definitely not a time-wasting thing, because that's just ridiculous. The team with 80% of the ball and all the chances doesn't time-waste at 0-0. It doesn't make any sense. But I do think it was a tactical thing, because even I was watching us take corners going, we're like waiting to see if something's going to happen before we take it, and we take it at the last second kind of thing. So I just wondered what your thoughts were on the goal and the way we were playing in terms of set pieces.
It was definitely tactical. They were talking about it so much post-game, which I thought was a little bit unfair. It was great because by the way, Theo is a revelation as a pundit, and he's so pro-Arsenal. He does it almost the opposite way Wright does it. Because obviously, Wright loves Arsenal and he's trying to be as impartial as he can, but he just can't be. Now, Theo's doing it in a kind of, it's just so funny watching him because you can see he's pro-Arsenal, but he underplays it, but he comes up with these one-liners now and again. And yesterday was no exception. It's almost like he was, guys, you keep talking about the corner and the so-called time-wasting, but actually, let's talk about the goal itself. What a wonderful goal. And I just thought he was brilliant. And he summed it up. I mean, it's not time-wasting, you're right, Jack, because why would we be time-wasting when we're chasing a goal? That makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever. There's no time wasting at all. Why would we be deliberately trying to slow the game down when we haven't even won the game? And we have to win the game. It just, whatever. Come on, get real. It's not time wasting. Definitely strategic. They were talking about it. I think who was interviewed, and they were said, Trossard. And I think they asked him a question, and they said, we do that in training. And it's almost like they were trying to figure out the movement of the Everton players, just watching. When can they execute this? And they were all, a lot of them were all, most of them were short corners, weren't they? So I think it was definitely
11 corners, eight went short. Yeah,
there you go. So I think it was definitely part of the plan. But when you watch it and you watch the entirety of it, just the build up to them taking their time, and then the execution and the movement and the passage of passes, you can see what they were trying to do. And I think it was the only way to try and get that moment, that time where a particular player could have the chance to, to try and put the ball in the net. But he actually said, Trossard even went to say as far as to say that particular move, even as far as Saka's assist, for him to one time the ball into the net, is something they practice too. So it's almost as if they were doing a dress, they'd rehearsed it. It's crazy to think you'd be able to execute that in a live game. But they did it, and all the players involved in that, and I can't remember all of them now because I've only watched it back once, I think it was, but just seeing them all, the way they moved the ball around to give themselves the opportunity to find the space to have a shot was incredible. And the finish, it was almost like a blindsided finish. It was a one-time. He wasn't even looking at the goal when he makes the first touch. It's just, he just knew it was there. And that's, I've always said that you could have a good striker and then you could have a natural striker as well. And I think he's that because he instinctively knows where to be and where the goal is. And I thought that was a wonderful thing from him. And he sort of did scored a similar goal in international duty, didn't he? And then that goal was great as well. And he just replicated it. And it was amazing. And this is why I feel that he should be getting more time because he's a real asset to have. And he can change a game in a second. You talk about game changers. We needed a goal. All right, we had the authority. Everton weren't doing much, but we weren't breaking through. Jack, we mentioned earlier about Fabio not maybe scoring. Could have scored a couple of goals where he didn't. I think Odegaard had there was a great move that led to his shot, didn't it? That went straight to the goalkeeper. So we weren't breaking through. So you need someone like Trossard that could potentially do something magical. But I thought it was a great finish. It was a great build-up. I mean, you might have a little bit more to say on the build-up, but I just thought that it was so planned and it came to fruition, which is difficult to replicate in a live game. I was just astounded by it, to be honest.
Yeah, it was weird because I was watching the game and we had a lot of corners. 11 corners is a lot for one game. And I was watching it thinking, we're definitely tactically doing something different from these corners. I noticed the slowing down to try to see whether we should take it short or not, which makes sense, it's basically a basketball team we're going up against. So we didn't have the tallest team out there either, no Havertz and things like that. So it made sense. It looked like when we were going short, we were trying to feed Vieira on the edge. That's what it looked like from a lot of the corners. And it looked like we did that this time. But he got closed down so quickly. What he did really good, it was just play it back into to Odegaard, I think. And then all the moves started, and it was fantastic, little fast pass moving, and looked looked like they trained for it basically at that point. And like you said, I mean, the finish, the way he opens up his body, it's bobbling. It's not an easy take at all. It shows he can do it with both feet. And I agree with you. I think he's one of our most natural finishers we've got for sure. And it's going to be good. His overall play was interesting because he does like to come inside more, so he doesn't really mimic what Martinelli does. I almost feel like Nelson will mimic what Martinelli does more in terms of like for like pace and energy. So it'll be interesting to see, if Nelson gets a little bit of those minutes too, especially with 3 games a week coming. Will he play one of the next 2? Maybe Nelson does start in midweek because it feels like those are the 2 that are there to come in if Martinelli drops out. But Trossard's just going to get so many minutes because anytime someone picks up something or is tired in the front 3, I expect it to be him to come in probably and will shuffle along or whatever because he's the one knocking down the door mostly. And like you said, that's why, because he's got that experience, he's got that ability. So it was really good to see. I was so excited when we scored. I was like, that's it now. Now they've got to come out. They've got to come out 5 yards at least. They didn't really come out much more, did they, at all? But the game opened up more for us because, you could tell they were getting a little bit frustrated at that point. The fans were getting on their back at that point. So when Jesus was already on when Trossard scored, I think, but him coming on really opened up the game as well. I felt, and Eddie was he was a little bit quiet. I thought he could have done a little bit better with one chance he had, and he took an extra touch. And he feels like in these games, so I'm going to cough here. It feels like in these games where it's so pending. I'm not certain he's great for those games always because I don't always trust him as much in small spaces. So I feel like it probably was more of a Jesus game, but I understand why he started. He probably deserved it. Jesus still coming back to fitness. I think it's quite wise to build him back in. Maybe he gets to start in midweek or certainly I probably expect him to start the derby at the weekend. So it'll be very interesting. But after that, Neil, it was really quite comfortable. I mean, we had more chances. Odegaard had a very good shot again, saved, I think. We had, we should have won the game by more, I think. And they didn't really test us at all. They had a few more long balls and things like that, but we handled them really well. Saliba and Gabriel were fantastic again at the back. When you bring Tommy Asu on, you just know our intention is to sort of shut up shop. He's our modern day Rob Holding, but much more effective, and better on the ball and all those kind of things. No offense to Rob Holding. So it was really, really impressive to see, to be honest. Who was your man of the match, Neil? Because there was a few players that I thought did really well. But who was your man? Who nicked it for you?
Well, it's a hard one because I thought, like you mentioned Rice earlier, I thought he was quite effective again. It's not just
Trossard won it because of the goal, probably. But
yeah, I think so. But I just wanted to quickly mention Rice because I thought that he's so good at winning the ball back. If they're even if they've got the ball back off us, and then he's just there. And you think, oh God, he's going to be given us a foul or a he's going to get carded. But he's so effective in how he does it. He's so good at breaking up play. It's unbelievable. So I thought he was effective in what he did. I felt the defence was very comfortable. Initially, I have to say, I think I was saying on the WhatsApp group, if you remember, I thought Zinchenko was playing really well. I mean, some of the passes,
it was terrific.
God, wonderful stuff. It was almost back to his old self. I felt like this is the best I've seen him play for a long, long time. After the crazy start that we had with him, and we were waiting. Do you remember? I think when then Jesus went off injured, and then he went, and we thought, are these two going to get to play together? Because they, when they first started together, we were so awesome. I thought he was back to his best. So there were a few. I thought he was up there, but I think Trossard probably. I think it's because of the goal and the difference that he made. At the end of the day, he won us the match. So I'm still going to. You know how much I love Trossard. Deserved, yes, 100%, and it would do well for him as well as an individual to get that win, to get the winning goal, and then to get the man of the match. I think it's going to be great for his motivation and his confidence. So I agree with it from that point of view. But I think there were 2 or 3 other players which were probably up there. I thought Zinchenko was good. I thought he was effective. I thought Rice was very good, although he was kind of more the unsung hero, I think, yesterday. So yeah, but overall, yeah, I tend to agree with it. And Raya, what a debut! I know it's easy to say that. Everton weren't doing much, so he wasn't under pressure, and what did we really see of him? But the way he commanded the goal was amazing.
Yeah,
I thought he was just who mentioned it. One of the chaps on the group said that it looks like it might be new. He used to say it feels like he's been with us for years. He just slotted in. It didn't feel like a debut, did it? It felt like he knows the team inside out, and he's been there for a long time. It will be really interesting to see where he goes with this goalkeeping situation now. Very interesting, I think.
Yeah, 94% pass accuracy, which I want to say is very good for a goalkeeper, but I haven't got the data on it, especially after he played 9 long balls as well. But yeah, it was basically a faultless performance. He didn't have tons to do, but what he did do, he did really well. I was very impressed with him. I mean, I've always been quite impressed with him whenever I've watched him. But yeah, like you said, he's coming in for a reason. He's going to play. He's going to play a lot. Not sure when it's going to happen fully. Maybe it's now. Feels like it's now because that's a big call to make a change to your goalkeeper after 5 games, I think. But that is possibly one of the most ruthless things Arteta has done. If that's the case, time will tell whether he really truly believes in the rotation stuff, and maybe the Champions League group stages allows him to do that in the short term. But once if you make the knockouts and stuff like that, it'll be really interesting. It'll be really interesting if he truly believes that in the Premier League. Like, is he looking at home games as being more for a certain goalkeeper and away games? I'm not really believing that. I'm struggling to believe that, to be honest, that he's going to consider rotating for Premier League games because each team turns up a little bit tactically different. I think when you're like us, we play so similarly. It doesn't matter the different formation or different personnel. We play so similarly in every game. It's so quick to identify what we do. It doesn't feel like something where you're going to rotate the goalkeeper. I know he mentioned, I'll rotate Jesus. Yeah. I'm not really believing that at the goalkeeper level. That's more for a fitness thing, isn't it? That's more, you rotate Jesus and Eddie because they're outfield players. Goalkeepers just doesn't feel like, certainly not in the league, that you're going to be rotating week in, week out. But maybe the cups, maybe he was waiting for this for 2 games a week to come up, and he knew he could keep him happy for longer. But I think he knows there's an end point to it. I think so. But maybe we're wrong, mate. It'll be very, very interesting on that. But I think I agree with you. Zinchenko, a couple of times sloppy, but his invention on the ball, his desire to make the hard pass, but then really effective. There are a couple of ones over the top, out wide, and all that kind of stuff. He's just so key to our play. He's so important to our play, I think, Zinchenko. And, he definitely has those moments where you're like, but he's so good going forward. You almost have to allow for that a little bit, and then hopefully he starts to. He hasn't really had a pre-season either, Zinchenko. No one really says that, but he never really had a pre-season, so he just rolled back in, and everyone just expects him to be the Zinchenko we know. But he might need a little bit as well. But I thought Odegaard was great as well. I mean, I think Rice, Odegaard, and Zinchenko, they were all terrific. But I thought Odegaard was very, very good on the ball. Just he's shooting a little bit. Should have probably come away with a goal. I think he had one on his right foot that he took. It went straight down Pickford, because Pickford's an absolute joke if you put it either side of him, and he's rubbish. What's your thoughts, Neil, before we go on? Obviously 2 big games coming up, but can't really talk too much about the lineup for the weekend's game because we don't have to focus on the Champions League game. I mean, back in the Champions League, it's been 6-7 years out of the Champions League. You're supposed to be going. Great! It's great to be back in the Champions League. We've got PSV Seville and Lens, is it, in our group? I think. So it's an interesting group. People say it's Europa League group. I wouldn't necessarily go that far. I don't remember having a group games against Seville and PSV in the Europa League, but obviously we had one of them in the group game. So it's still a tough group, I would say. PSV are top of their league, unbeaten. What do you see for this? Obviously, we're not going to rotate anywhere near as much as the Europa League. Do you think he just goes in and rotates 3 or 4? How do you think we approach this? Because you want to be. He's going to take it seriously. Even in the Europa League, he actually rotated less than we thought he was going to. We'd always be like, he's going to rotate 7 or 8. He would rotate less. So I think the max we probably can think of is maybe a 3 rotation or something like that.
Firstly, there's no such thing as an easy game. No chance. They're all tough. I think the only way we can say we've come out well in this group is because of the travelling aspect. There's no majorly ridiculously long journeys for the players to have to endure. I think because they're all neighbouring European countries. I think that's where we can say we've been lucky with the draw. But they're not easy to. I'm sorry. I don't. If anyone goes, that's an easy group, no, it's not, because. At this level, there's no such thing as an easy game. I don't think. I think it's tough. The Champions League is definitely going to be tougher than Europa. Where we were probably guaranteed to go quite far in Europa, and we did. We should have won one of those cups. I think we should have really won it. We never did. So I think number one, because we've been absent for so long, we've got to make a good impression on the rest of Europe. We've got to start off well. So I don't think he's going to go with anything other than the strongest team that he could possibly field. Obviously, Martinelli now, I'll be shocked to see him. We don't know the extent of his injury yet. We don't know how long he's out for. So let's assume he's not going to be there. So we're going to obviously see a change with that one straight away. So probably Trossard will start, I'm guessing, for that. I think he'll start Jesus, Jack. I just want to say, Eddie, to be fair to him, initially, I think it was right at the start of the game, he did a couple of back heels, which were great. They were very pleasing. That was pleasing to the eye. We haven't been as pleasing, but that movement, which involved him of all people, was actually really nice. I wish one of them had led to a goal, because then that would have been what a goal that he would have been involved in. But I think, to be fair, he will go with Jesus despite that. I think Jesus will start. I think Trossard will start. Toss up with Vieira and Havertz, though. That would be interesting. I'm not sure on that one. We'll see. And then, again, the goalkeeping situation, whether Ramsdale comes back in or not, that will be interesting. I think he will. I've just got this feeling Ramsdale
I think
will play again. I think he will, and I think it'll be crazy to see Ramsdale start and then Raya to come back against Spurs, because then that is true rotation between two competitions, isn't it? It's very interesting. It's difficult to say. I don't want him to touch the defence. I want them to stay as they are. I really do.
Only one could be Tomiyasu, really. Unless you rest Gabriel for Kivior, but I don't see it.
No. Potentially Tomiyasu may come on or start this time, but it'll be, again, it's really... But the thing is, what's nice about it, as I'm talking, I'm thinking what options we've got is so much better than we've ever had for so long. Yeah. If we wanted our strongest team before, we were stuck, with 13 players maybe, tops? 11, 12 maybe? Now we can see already, by going through all different parts of the pitch, that we've got options everywhere, really, which is a great thing. We're forgetting Jorginho. Because of his Champions League experience, he could come into the midfield like you were expecting him to for the Everton game. There's a possibility there. I think the most interesting one for me will be the decision on Havertz. I want to see what he does with that. And how Yeah, exactly. So I'm interested on that one. Because he's another Champions League experienced chap, isn't he? He's effectively won Chelsea the Champions League. So that would be really interesting for me.
I think he'll play him.
Yeah, maybe.
But then he might not play him at the weekend, so... that's what makes it interesting. I expect 3 or 4. I'm not sure. I think Ramsdale will be one. I think obviously Trossard for Martinelli, or it could be Nelson, but one of those, obviously, that's the second change. And then probably you're looking at the striker position and maybe central midfield, whether it's Jorginho or Havertz or whatever. Yeah, like you said, Jorginho, very, very experienced on the ball. And I feel like the European games are a little bit different, right? Obviously, PSV are going to be much more imaginative and attacking than Everton. So, which is nice to a degree, because you're playing against a team that actually wants to play some football, but it'd just be amazing to be back in the Champions League. But obviously we've got to win that first game. It's really, really important that we win.
We have to.
And then of course it's the North London derby, which we can't get into too much because, again, like you said, we can only focus on one game. But they've got a full week's rest. They're playing really well, aren't they, under their new manager? So it's going to be a really, really tough game. What's your predictions for the two, Neil? Before we go, what's your prediction for PSV at home on Wednesday, and then I think it's Spurs at home on Sunday, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I'm going to go 2-0 PSV. That's something.
Clean sheet at home, yeah.
Yeah, at home. We had to have a clean sheet obviously yesterday. I mean, at home. So 2-0 PSV. I think it'll be a good start for us in that competition. I think we've got to make sure we're authoritative in the. We are good away in the Prem. It's going to be a different kettle of fish in Europe. We've got to make sure we show that our authority at home in the home games in the Champions League. So I really want us to be almost like a fortress on Wednesday. Just shut them out. And they're going to be. I think they're going to want to go for it because obviously it's exciting for them, isn't it, coming to the Emirates? So I think 2-0 would be good, would be solid. And
first score.
I'm going to say Trossard again.
Nice.
I'm going to say Trossard, but I want to see. I just wanted to quickly ask you just before the prediction for Sunday. What are your thoughts on Saka? Because I'm still thinking, could we have him rest for a bit? Because I'm not seeing the levels of Saka that we're so used to. Obviously, he has the goal.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned, not with his ability, just concerned that just the guy need a bit of a rest. Because he did feature a little bit with England, didn't he? He wasn't completely rested. I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah, I can't see us not starting him in the first Champions League game, of course. My concern is not that he gets rest from starts, is that we pull him off earlier. We seem to play him every 90 minutes, don't we? Rarely does he even get subbed off unless it's the last sort of few minutes. So I would like to see a Nelson come in at 70. If we're winning the game, we have to be able to trust in that player or someone else to be able to do that and just save his legs a little bit that way. So what I want to see, I would love to see, but obviously it depends on the game state, is, Saka comes off at 65, 70 on midweek. That would be something, because the guy is, like you said, he's playing every minute of every game. That would be my concern. Obviously, down the road, I think after these two, they have Carling Cup, and obviously that's where I'm expecting them to be rotated out. But I can't see it too much. But definitely, I would love to see it more from the subs bench in terms of during game. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah,
fair enough. Sunday, wow, that is. I can't. Unexpectedly, they're playing well, which is a shame.
Yeah, it seems like the coach is doing well, isn't
he? Yeah, it's fair play, he is. But again, having said that, even if they'd lost their first 5, I still expect it to be a tough game. You can't legislate for a North London derby, Arsenal Spurs derby. You just can't. No. Form book, I've always said form book goes completely out the window. It's a difficult one. They're both going to be up for it. Everyone wants the bragging rights. It's always a nervy one for us, no matter how well we've been doing. Where it's the older days where they were a nothing team and we were just brushing them aside. It's still always a bit nervy. I don't like to do draw predictions. I just don't. So I'm still going to go for a win. It's going to be a nervy, tight affair. I can't not see them scoring, Jack. They always seem to. Even when we smash them apart, they always seem to get it. So I'll go 2-1. So 2-0 PSV, 2-1 Spurs. 2-1 Spurs, I'll actually go with Saka to score first.
2-1 to Arsenal.
Yeah. 2-1. Oh, God, yeah. Yes.
Okay. Fingers crossed. So I'll take that. I'll go 2-1 midweek. Saka. I'll go 3-1 against Tottenham. I'll go 3-1. Okay. I'll say Rice as the first scorer for that. Yeah, man. Yeah, I've watched them. They do. I mean, obviously they had a dramatic. They didn't look great actually this weekend. I watched a fair amount of their game, and they didn't look great. But obviously they've looked pretty good over the course of the season. And obviously they're playing one game a week. They've spent a fortune too. I don't know why. The sort of there's this sort of underdog story surrounding certain teams. They spent more than we did this summer, and they've got one game a week. I would be at the very least expecting them to be battling for the top 4 positions. So not really understanding where sort of that sort of like isn't it a surprise to see them doing this and all this kind of stuff. But they definitely look like they're more organised. They're playing more football. So. Yeah, it'll be interesting. But like you said, we've got to focus on that PSV one. It's a massive game for us, the Champions League. And then you get your rest in and you think about the big one on Sunday. So, hey, either of our 2 results, taking them all day. So, but brilliant to get the win. I was very nervous going into this Everton game. I don't love, after an international break, being one of the last games. I don't love that either. And obviously a lot of the results weren't the ones that we wanted, other than Manchester United, which was hilarious. Again, they're an absolute mess, aren't they? Which is fantastic. We really ruined them, didn't we? So it's just brilliant to see. But obviously, a lot of the other teams doing pretty well at this early stage of the season. But you got to take one game at a time. What were your thoughts just before we go on? Vinay leaving, CEO of the club. Been with us for 14 years, I think.
14 years, yeah.
Do you have any... I mean, me and you don't on this podcast talk too much about the hierarchy. Certainly not above Edu. That much, a little bit about Cronkies at times, but it's hard to know how you replace that. I've seen some rumours about us being linked to certain people that aren't really involved in football, a bit like Vinay wasn't, right? He wasn't a footballing man going into the position, as far as I'm aware, but very young. I just wondered, we've lost Steve Round, we've lost Vinay. Obviously our team doctor's gone to, I think he's started with Man U now, he's left us. I don't know who's really taken that role on. Obviously we've got a lot of medical personnel, but I just wonder if you feel this is just part of the evolving sort of nature of all clubs. Eventually, people leave jobs and move on, and you replace it. As long as we're keeping the core together of Edu and Arteta, at the moment at least, that would be my main concern. I don't know if you had any thoughts on it.
No, I thank you. I'd say thank you for his service, etc. But to be honest, until you just mentioned it now, I'd completely forgotten. So that's how much it's affected me. I think it would have been more relevant if we were still in turmoil at the top. But right. I think that's settled down recently, hasn't it? Now, especially with the introduction of the good partnership that Edu and Arteta seem to have. The owners seem to be happy to allow them to do what they need to do to develop this team. So I think if we didn't have that, I would be probably a little bit more concerned. But because we've got that, and I feel that we're already stable, I don't think that being nice departure is going to destabilise anything, to be fair. I think we'll just find a replacement and it will just carry on as clockwork. That's my opinion. What do I know? Nothing. But that's how I feel. And as I said, you just mentioned it, I completely forgot. So it hasn't affected me. I don't know about you, but I'm not too worried about it, to be honest.
No, I mean, he's not leaving till the end of the season. So, but yeah. Not too fast. Like you said, that things like this change a lot within clubs. The main thing is your core guys that are making the footballing decisions from our perspective. Because Vinay was more on the commercial side, wasn't he? So, that's what we want to keep together. So hopefully we do that, especially with Edu and Mikel. So I feel like we've got a really good partnership going there. So, yeah, absolutely. Neil, it's been a pleasure. At Purely Arsenal FP on Twitter, Purely Arsenal on YouTube. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. Get the podcast a little bit earlier. No ads or anything like that on there. And we like to sort of bump up the subscriptions, so appreciate it. So find us Purely Arsenal on YouTube, at Purely Arsenal FP. If you've got to ask us questions or got any comments, feel free to comment on our Twitter page or on YouTube. And we'll be back. Don't usually do midweek ones, do we, on this podcast? So we'll be back, hopefully, after the North London derby. Fingers crossed, talking just as positively. Up the Arsenal. Keep the faith, boys. Big week ahead.